Really quick, I want to say stick to the end of the video for a very important message, and also a reminder, the limited time 10K merch is going to be going off sale this Sunday. This Sunday, May 5th, this Sunday. So if you haven't already, go get some, because after that they're going to be gone forever and you're never going to be able to get them ever again. Have you ever felt like the world was hiding something from you? From small secrets to big conspiracies, you would probably never know about any of the dark happenings in the world if they were just hidden from your sight. The definition of a secret is something that is kept or meant to be kept unknown or unseen by others. Everyone has them, and if you say, "Well, I don't have any secrets," stop lying to yourself. I know you have a really embarrassing memory from when you were 7 when you ate shit off of your off-brand Flickr scooter that you asked for specifically because you thought it would be impossible to fall off of since you don't have any balance on it, but you still managed to fall off of it and you got a scar for your eyebrow that you had for about 6 weeks afterwards, and you told people that you hit your head in your door frame because somehow that's less embarrassing than saying you fell off a scooter with no protective gear onto asphalt and that you tell anyone about this day too. Or maybe that's just me. Psychopomp is a game created by Fading Club, aka Carbonic, aka Fintangwe. It was released on the 30th of January 2024 and is classed as a psychological horror dungeon crawler. The whole game revolves around this girl, who I'm just gonna call Pompey. There's theories as to what her name actually is. Carbonic has mentioned that her name is in the game somewhere, but has never actually confirmed it, apart from saying that it's a mouthful. But we'll get to that later on. Coming to the game's Steam description, we can read, "Welcome to the world of Psychopomp. There are catacombs hidden under every building in the world. Everyone knew about them, but lied to you about them your entire life. Descend into the depths and see what awaits below. Psychopomp is a short psychological horror dungeon crawler. Something is wrong with the world and everything is not as you remember. You don't know why, but everything draws you to the earth, to the tunnels below. Do the answers await you there, or is something far worse in store? Enter the catacombs and immerse yourself in a world that only grows darker the deeper you get. Keep your wits about you, watch your back, and survive." It seems like there's gonna be a lot in store for us. In Psychopomp, Pompey creates this headset called the Psychopomp in order to read people's thoughts. However, I'm sure it'd be best if I just let her tell you that herself. However, before I get started into the game, I want to say major spoiler warning for literally the entirety of the game. I'll be going over what I think is the entirety of the game, maybe bar for a secret or two. So if you can, I heavily suggest going and playing the game yourself as always. The game is free on both Steam and itch.io, so if you have a PC, there's nothing stopping you from playing the game. Everyone, everywhere, has secrets. Did you know that everyone has special powers and they've kept it a secret from me my entire life? But I won't stand for that. That's why I made a helmet. I call it Machine That Lets Me Read People's Minds When I Want To, or Psychopomp for short. But something happened when I put it on. It didn't let me read people's minds, but it did let me see something else. A world that was hidden from me, that everyone knew about. A world hidden in plain sight, with all sorts of animals and creatures and dead bodies. There are catacombs hidden under every public government building. I will not allow any more secrets to be kept from me. Before we can get into the actual game, we must first go through a quick tutorial. On the bottom of our screen, we have Psychopomp's UI with the 4 options of look, talk, touch, and beat with a hammer. We also have access to our inventory, this arrow which tells us where to go, and a view of Pompey's current expression which matches with our health, which is also shown by this red vial alongside our stamina in this purple vial. In order to move around, our movement isn't smooth, and we instead navigate around with these sudden jolts, much like with the dungeon crawler playstyle. The only way to have any kind of smooth movement is to hold down control in order to look around freely, which, with how much I enjoy the environments of this game, is a very welcome feature. The whole game has this rusty, grungy, industrial look to it, which is very reminiscent of the original Silent Hill, especially when combined with the divot effect that the whole game has over it, which makes the whole style of the game a massive hodgepodge of literally all of my favorite things. We were told how to pick up items and interact with the many entities that we'll find throughout the game, and after unlocking a door, we can find a puppy! I mean, I think it's a puppy. It looks kinda weird though. We can interact with it, it'll just act like a normal dog. However, one thing that I want to mention is to acknowledge the giant hole in the fucking Earth-esque planet in the sky. I'll come back to why this is important later on, but just keep this in the back of your mind for now. You'll be doing that a lot in this video. But for now, let's carry on through this red mist and out of the tutorial into the game's main hub world menu, where we're greeted with 3 main levels. The sewage plant, You see that? That word right there? I don't do well with those. I'm leaving that one till the end. And the public school. There isn't any kind of forced order, and you can pick whichever level you want to do in any order. But for now, we can start with the first game in the area, the sewage treatment plant. In between each section of the game, we'll get a small look into Pompey's conspiracies with both a gameplay tip and a real-world tip. With the gameplay tip relating to the game itself, whilst the real-world tip is just... Well, I'll give you a few examples. Every building, from hospitals to homes, contains a room which acts like the heart of the building, delivering blood and nutrients to the building's extremities. Try to find your house's heart. In 1956, a new disease appeared in Osaka, Japan. The symptoms included a strong cough, a rash, and becoming a room. Luckily, the virus was contained and eradicated. Starting in 2001, the rooms have been rented out as a bed and breakfast. Public schools are required to have at least 50 teeth of mammalian origin embedded into their north-facing walls, for structure and safety reasons. Starting off in the first area of the sewage treatment plant, we can find that dingy, rusty style continuing onwards. The place looks run down and none of the doors are able to be opened. There are strange lights swinging about and random pipes all over the place. At the end of the hallway, we can find an elevator. Next to it, we can find a giant spinning machine, most likely doing its job at treating the sewage back into drinkable water. As we walk about these upper parts of the buildings, Pompey will say stuff to us, giving us a little bit more insight onto how she thinks. It's not that hard to enter a public building. The buffoon who invented locks and windows has never heard of a hammer. Water treatment. Human waste being processed and cleaned, made acceptable for consumption again. Chemicals being added to chemicals to remove chemicals. If water treatment is for our safety and concern, why is there an elevator heading straight down into the human waste? What could be hidden down there? And if it's such a big secret, why is it so easy to go down there? Sick fucks. Coming down into the catacomb itself, we can find a very distinct tonal shift from the building above, where the semi-normal rusty architecture is replaced by a more stone dungeony look, still keeping that grungy different style to it. We can find this little enclosed corner containing a pair of boxes before descending further down into the system, where we can take note of this locked passageway, with no sign of what could be waiting at the bottom, before turning and making our way out into a larger room in the system, one which contains this strange two-headed creature, one which makes it very clear to us that it wants us to come closer. I'm not doing that again. One thing that really creeps me out about the game is just the use of that grotesque sounding death cry. No matter what enemy we kill in this game, they all sound the same, carrying out that blood-curdling scream along with them. The designs of the enemy in this place are all these fleshy parasitic creatures with cutesy faces. Speaking of which, here's one now. The creatures that attack us in this game are all patrolling enemies that will lose interest once you step far enough away. However, that doesn't stop them from being a pretty decent scare. For our first encounter, that sound effect is pretty haunting. Down the pathway in front of us, we can find a lever which will open up a path leading back to that sealed off area we saw from before. And a note which reads, April 19th. I feel like I just woke up the other day for the first time. I have memories before Sunday, but they just feel so hazy, so much less vivid. I feel so awake now, so real. I just can't stop smiling. Something good has happened. It's happened. For a self-portrait. Now I'll get back to this note's possible importance later on, however for now, this is another thing that we'll be keeping in the back of our mind as we carry on through the now open passage to find a secret temple in the middle of the system. One which is resembling that of an old ruin and is covered in these suspicious looking eyes that seem to be judging our every move. Entering it, we can find what appears to be a statue of a dragonfly-esque figure, and around the back we can find a member of what is called the Freight species. A civilization which will become more important later on, however for now we can talk to this member who states, You startled me. This holy place has been overrun by those sparkle-eyed freaks. I can do barely anything to keep them away. We also find health here. So that's pretty cool. Turning back, we can take this other passageway to find another Freight, who has seemingly been waiting for the lowered bridge to be raised back up. Watch your step wayward. The bridge is out. I've been throwing rocks into this chasm for hours and I haven't heard a single one hit the bottom. There's also this strange wall, which seems to be bleeding. Oh. Walking inside, we can find both a symbolic man who states, "You probably think you're in a lot of pain, but I've been here much longer than you. Sooner or later, everything will calm down and return to the symbols." And a note from an unknown doctor/scientist. "I apologize, but this doesn't make any sense. I can't wrap my head around it. All measurements, gravity, trajectory, mass, they're all consistent with a planet noticeably smaller than Earth. There's no way that Earth lost mass. Did it? And what of the Earth that now hangs in the sky? It too looks just like our planet, but far smaller, closer in size to a moon. I don't see how you can deny all of this. Your claim that all of this is simply caused by equipment failure or operator error is absurd. I understand the desire to be skeptical and I respect what you've done for me over the years, but at some point we need to start looking at what is directly in front of our faces. You're in denial of the situation that we have found ourselves in. This is, once again, you guessed it, more important later on. So we can grab some more health before returning back to that passageway where we found that first enemy and continue to descend past this locked door before... Oh god, what the fuck is that? It dies just as fast as the rest of the enemies down here, but dear god, if that first encounter was a fucking jump scare, that thing was a leap terror. It's the only one of its kind down here, and I don't know whether that makes me feel better or worse. There's another peaceful entity below us, which is just titled as the Nugget, which tells us, "It's simply so fun to live off of human waste. We funnel human byproduct into our queen, who in turn replicates the raw material into flesh and milk for us." So, these things are literally just parasites? Got it. Continuing down to the bottom of this area, we can find another locked door next to a dark tunnel, at the end of which we can find this strange little guy bobbing about. "My key, my special key, the queen gave it to me. My special love gave it to me. If anyone ever took it, I'd explode, I'd be so mad." Your Honor, you would have done the exact same fucking thing. Taking the creature's key, we're able to enter that big locked purple door from before and find the queen of whatever these things are behind it. I'm also pretty sure that it's placed perfectly just to hide behind the player's inventory, which is a pretty neat touch. Looking at the area surrounding the queen, we can take note of this large guillotine above her head before coming to her directly. Her form has taken up the entire room, swollen from years of gestation and propagation. After all this time, look at that lovely smile. Talking to her, she asks us, "Is it time for me to go?" Speaking to the nuggets at either side of her, both holding a key and medicine separately, they explain, "She was a good queen. However, like all good queens, she must eventually be recycled. Do us a favor and use those hands of yours to get the job done. Heavy is the crown, the guillotine has been set since before the queen was born, and will be set for many generations of milk babies like her to come. This cycle is natural for whatever species this is, and neither of the creatures care to see the queen go. To them, the queen is purely just their way of getting food and being born. They don't care about her otherwise. Now, in order to kill the queen, we must use our new key to go back down and unlock that locked passageway, which leads us to two levers. One which opens up a shortcut back to a previous room, and one which brings the bridge back up for us to cross on the other side. Doing so, we can find that freight woman on the other side. Speaking to her now reveals another message. The bridge was raised, but there's nothing over here. I'd hoped there may be food here that I could bring back to my village. But I suppose it was just a pipe dream. All that's here is that lousy, rusty lever. And of course, besides her, we can find said lever which drops the guillotine, killing the queen and allowing us to continue to the next zone by picking up an egg of the earth. Something that we'll be doing for all 3 locations. Now, one thing that I want to point out that I didn't do in my Yumaniki video, which if you haven't watched that one, make sure to do so after this video, is that some of the theories that I'll be talking about in this video and that I talk about in my other videos aren't originally mine, or are theories that I only heard about from others and thought, hey, this is another really cool way of looking at this piece of media, and I just like to include them since, especially in the psychological horror genre, there are a lot of different ways to interpret said media. Just Keep in mind that some of the theories that I talk about are just from the community themselves, or I've heard about because of people in the community. I just like including opinions other than my own to give you guys a couple of different perspectives on something. Usually I'll say, hey, this is the specific theory that I believe in. Sometimes I forget, but keep that in mind because a lot of this game's story is through interpretation. So I'll be going over a lot of different theories today. In specifics, I got a lot of the theories for today and a lot of the secrets from today from K367 on Steam. There's a guide. They made a guide. I used that for a lot of this. So a lot of credit for a lot of, well, this video to that guide, since I otherwise would not have been able to have found a lot more of the secrets in this game without it. Starting off with the idea that each of the 3 locations are representations of human society. I'll get to the other 2 later on, however for the sewers it's specifically believed that these creatures act as, well, parasites, feeding off of this queen and a symbolic representation of how society— There's gonna be a lot of society talk. Get used to it. A symbolic representation of society's willingness to live off of one another and the general hype of consumption that the whole world has. A lot of people in the world, and I say a lot, not all, don't really give a shit about where things come from or what impact they have in the world from where their food comes from or where their cool stuff comes from. These parasitic creatures represent that pretty well. They do not give a shit that the queen's gonna die. That's just natural to them because they know that somebody else will replace her and they'll still get food. However, moving on from the sewage plant, we're able to enter No! We're saving you for the end! We can enter the public school. Entering, the whole place is dark, the walls are covered in brick, and the only available light comes from these small pinkish red lights which are able to highlight the various "Keep That Smile Going" posters which litter the place. Alongside this, we can find various hallways containing lockers and a large cafeteria area with a stage up front. This time, as we walk about Pompey States, cold place where they put the loud kids. When you sleep inside a school, you learn new things. When I sleep inside a school, I taste new things. Dead end. I look into each of the classrooms and there's only nerve cell clusters sitting at each of the desks. I close my eyes tightly and I think I may be at the other side of the school. The elevator is down this way. I can feel it even if I can't see it. It's like a vein that goes all the way down to the heart. You can then go down the elevator and into a factory? This area of the game is definitely where I started to see that Silent Hill-esque style shine through, and also where I found one of the most unintentionally scary designs. Like, forget this. This? I don't know what I was expecting, but it was not just a face with a big vacant hole in it being this scary to me. This is the head of production, much like with the Parasite Queen, we're tasked with killing them, and they seem to be happy with that. The factory workers, however, aren't as pleased about it. On our way into the factory, we can find this note. When a child looks to the sky, they will make believe about stars, planets, and other impossible lights shining above. When the adult looks to the sky, they will see no light but take comfort in it. There's no danger in the nothingness. When the dead looks to the sky, they will smile and close their eyes, seeing that there was light all along. Stupid, there are no stars. And out of all the notes in the game, I couldn't really find any relevance to the lore in this note. There is a phenomenon that we learn about later relating to the stars, however I don't think this is related to that. If anything, I think that this is just some kind of poetic metaphor for the way that people see the world. When you're a kid, you have a lot of dreams, and you believe in a lot of different things. As an adult, however, those dreams may begin to fade, choosing to focus more on what's in front of us or what's more important, quote unquote. However, in the last part of a person's life, they usually reminisce on those happier memories, being able to dream once more. I wish I could think of a more lore-related reason for this note, however, it's completely slipped my mind if there is one. Let me know in the comments if this is related to anything, I would love to know if it is. In front of us, we have 3 paths, split up by moving gears and machinery. The middle will take us up to the head of production themselves, who is accompanied by another worker. The head of the factory is up ahead. The fucker keeps begging us to kill him. Doesn't he know how important it is to continue manufacturing? Clearly, unlike the parasite, the workers want us to keep the head of production alive. But not out of compassion or care, rather just to keep their operation going. Apart from this worker though, there's nothing for us to do here right now and we must go to both the left and the right sides in order to turn off the factory's safeguards and kill the head of production. Starting off with the right side, we can find another worker. Having a factory under an elementary school is so pragmatic, wouldn't you agree? It affords us so many opportunities we wouldn't have otherwise. Before passing by a red light and being greeted by this floating head covered in moving gears, working the exact same as the enemies from the sewers and can therefore be killed in the same way. The lighting of the factory itself is reflectant of our health and stamina, making an environment that genuinely melds well with the industrial vibe of both our UI and just generally the rest of the game. The entire game has this rusty industrial vibe to it, so having a factory level works really well for it. I also just want to point out the utter eeriness of having the head of production being visible from nearly all parts of the level, being reminded of its imminent demise upon this pedestal it's been put on. At the end of the right passage, we can find another worker guarding the entrance to a small room. This is my favorite building in the factory. When a small child has outlasted their use, we melt them down into slag and turn that into new butter knives and egg slicers. I think that recycling is beautiful. Don't you? Stepping inside, we can face another gearhead creature before laying sight upon a giant furnace, pumping out egg slicers, the sound of children's laughter emanating within. They still have no idea what's about to happen to them. Next to the furnace, there is another worker who is guarding the safeguard switch. Huh? Let you buy to shut down the safeguards? So you can crush the head of the factory? You gotta be stupid if you think I'd do that. You gotta be a dumbass if you think I'd do that. The worker seems fully willing to guard the switch with his life, and so therefore they must pay with it. Turning off the right side safeguard, we can make a start on the lefts, passing by a purple light this time, once again reiterating that reflectance of our stamina and health. Having the right side with the red light make us fight multiple creatures and drain our health, and the left with the purple light having us run under these mechanized crusher machines draining our stamina. It's a small detail, but I thought it was cool enough to point out. At the end of these machines, we can find yet another worker. Oh, you made it through. That's the sign of a good worker. A good worker doesn't follow safety protocols and does not die when doing so. After this room, we can find a large room full of nerves, flesh, and teeth. A strange creature can be seen up top and 2 workers can be found inside. This is where we make parasitic enamel. Once mature, the enamel will be applied to the teeth of the children up above, and will learn new things from the words they speak. This information is fed to a generative model, which will then use it to create new lessons for the children. Oh, god damn it, is the head of production trying to kill himself again? Let me guess, he sent you here so you can crush his skull? Not gonna happen, dumbass, get the hell out of here. We deal with these guys the same as the previous one and unlock the second safety switch, finally coming back to the head of production himself. My life has turned into an endless line of misery and illness. I beg of you, if you have any mercy in your soul, please kill me, and make it as painful as possible. And we do just that, with the heads bringing out one last smile before being crushed by the surrounding crushers. We can then grab another egg of the earth and move on. To me, I believe that much like with the sewers, the public school is another representation of society, this time specifically the shitty education system that's in place in a lot of different places in the world. It absolutely goes without saying that for a lot of people, me included, school is both one of the best times of your life and the worst. You make some of your closest friends, build good memories, have a lot of fun times, but at the same time you have your body changing a lot, both physically and mentally. You have to deal with everyone's stupid amount of different dramas. Everyone fucking hates everyone. You all want to fucking fight each other. All the while, the school is devoiding you of any of your creative thoughts or dreams and filling you up with the most useless information you're most likely gonna forget once you leave. Instead of like, I don't know, telling you how to do taxes or give you any kind of self-preservation skills. I mean, take it from me, I was a fucking nerd. I got all A's and B's in my GCSEs, and yeah, I do not remember anything. And that's not me saying be mean to your teachers or anything, your teachers are just doing their job. At the end of the day, teachers are just people too. I loved all of my teachers, they were the sweetest people that I've ever met at my time at school. Respect your fucking teachers. They're not being paid nearly enough to deal with half of the shit that I saw in school. Blame the school system itself. But in this representation of the school system, we can see the workers taking these children who still have no clue about what they're about to be put through, and turning them into these absolutely useless items. Using parasitic enamel to drain them of any unique ideas and feeding them these useless facts that aren't ever gonna help them. But now I guess it's time. From one place of suffering to another. Let's enter the hospital. And I already fucking hate it here. Entering the hospital, we come across another dark environment, lit only by the various fluorescent lights as hospital rooms litter the various hallways. In the middle of the building, we can find a front desk, alongside a sign stating, "You're only sick once," which kind of boosts some of the statements Pompey makes around here, including, "Children's hospitals have the same smell to them. It's a clean smell that somehow makes you want to vomit, like a mixture of bleach and Elmer's glue." I love it. Doctors will always smile at you when they say they cannot help you. Give them the copay and die more as they tell you that you aren't full of cancer, aren't full of incurable illnesses. Hospitals feel like the safest place to me, even though I know they aren't. They're the least safe place. A place that will swallow you whole and give you a disease. A place that will cut you open and make others feel good about it. And through it all, the elevator is there. I can smell it. That smell of rust and petrol breaking through the clean hospital smell. The door's wide open, waiting for me to enter. We once again find another elevator and make our way down. Oh dear God. To put the cherry on top of me absolutely shitting bricks in this area, the soundtrack that accompanies it is unlike any of the others we've come across so far. While the other two tracks go for an albeit bass-heavy, slightly empty track, the hospital's track is barren, bar for the droning ambience heard throughout. Going forward, we can find what appears to be a nurse, a massive hole where her face should be. Seems like that's an ongoing theme of the character design in the game. Possibly to hint at some kind of lack of individuality between the entities here. The nurse states, "Welcome to the lower wing. Here we help to preserve the most important individuals of humankind, both in honor of their contributions and as a sign for the rest of humanity to follow." The hospital is seemingly only keeping the more important people alive, as seen by the free passageways leading to Alexander the Great, Plato, and Cleopatra. Alexander the Great was the king of Macedonia from around 336 to 323 BC. He is noted to be one of the most successful military commanders in all of history. At only 20 years old, he became a successor for his father, Philip II, and began leading a massive military operation which led to the Macedonian Empire, being among the likes of the Tang Dynasty and the Ottoman Empire for being one of the largest empires to ever exist. Taking up about just under 4% of the whole world, which doesn't sound like a lot until you realize that that looks like this. And all of the other empires that were either close to this or were bigger, apart from the Achaemenid Empire, which only had around 0.22% more, were hundreds, if not thousands of years after the Macedonian Empire. Like, even the British Empire, the largest empire to ever exist, which happened over 2,000 years after the Macedonians with so many technological advancements, only 26% of the world. Only just above 6 times that of the Macedonians after 2,000 years. I would say that he's one of the more successful military commanders. Alexander is surrounded by both the sounds of screaming and screens including a shark, skulls, and mushrooms, stating, "There's no greater in this world than the feeling of battle. To conquer and to be conquered. To feel that warm slick on your hand. Wouldn't you agree? I would do anything to feel another man's blood again." Next is Plato, an ancient Greek philosopher from around 427 to 348 BC, and has influenced a massive amount about what we know now and how a lot of us think. Mainly a lot of things to do with the soul, what's right or wrong, or how education can change us as a person. His teacher was Socrates, another really influential philosopher who was known for his theories and ideas about morals, and one of his students was Aristotle, yet another really influential figure who was well known as both a philosopher and a physicist. And you'd never guess what he did. He taught Alexander the fucking Great by request of his dad, Philip II. That's right, it's all connected. Plato is surrounded by the sounds of children's laughter, and screens show a crib, a playset, and I actually cannot tell what that is. He states, "I was right about everything in my life except for the cave. I was totally off the mark with that. No matter. There is no better sound than the sound of children. The touch of children, the smell of children." Socrates agrees with me, so you know it's good and right. which I am not about to go into the implications of that. You can assume the cave that he references refers to one of his philosophies called Allegory of the Cave, which is funny seeing as he's gonna have another allegory in a minute. Plato paints the picture of a person chained inside of a cave facing a wall. There are objects behind them that they can't see, and instead of fire is projecting its shadow onto the wall in front of them. They are then given the names of said objects. These names may not be correct, or they may be different to their actual names, however to that person who only has what they've been taught to go off of, this will be true fact. And to everyone in the world, whatever we've been taught about is how we see reality. The shadows are the person in the cave's reality, but are not accurate representations of the real world. The shadow is only a small part of the full reality. And finally, we have Cleopatra, an Egyptian pharaoh from around the years 51 BC to 30 BC. She was well known for being extremely charismatic and influenced a lot of Roman politics, and was one of the more well-known early female rulers. There were a few that came before Cleopatra, however none of them are as well documented as her. And not long after her, you have one of my favorite rulers, Boudica. Never forget about Boudica. Never! A lot of Cleopatra's rule came from her charismatic abilities, having relations with both Mark Antony and Julius Caesar, which makes sense as to why she's surrounded by the sounds of cheering and admiration. The screens around her display eyes, mouths, and hands, and she states, "There's nothing better in life than having people think that you're helping them. Popularity is absolutely key when moving forward. If you play your cards right, anything seems necessary. A massacre, a young girl with a slit throat, the dissolution of a people, a crushed slave revolt. They'll do it all for you, if you know how." The three figures are all very prominent parts of history, and their influence is still around today, representing society's attachments to war and violence, emotional connections and creativity, and connections and popularity. Being very clear and important leitmotifs in today's and in historical societies, they are therefore being kept alive by the hospital, even if they are now withered and a lot less on the positive side. While here, we can also take note of this nurse carrying a badge. We're gonna be needing 3 of these, so... Coming back to that first fork in the road, we're able to travel off to the left and find a long hallway. At the one end, we can find a note. Recently uncovered texts reference 2 enigmatic figures. Forgive me, I'm about to fucking butcher this. Savanash Vishniri, Queen of Venus, and Kirstner Colvin, King of Mercury. I'm fucking praying that's right. Several ancient textiles depict these beings creating the heavenly bodies and weaving the universe. Their names seemingly refer to 2 fictitious planets, Venus and Mercury respectively, which they held dominion over. It is thought that these figures acted as a subject of worship. However, their descriptions and depictions within their textiles match no known religions or cultures. Figure A. Symbols of the aforementioned dictics. Dictics? Is that what it says? It's deities. It says fucking deities. The font is so weird. It says deities fucking dictics. Note the upright cross, possibly denoting a connection to Christianity. This note is probably one of the more important notes in the game. I still can't get over fucking dictics. Fucking dictics. Introducing the characters of the Queen of Venus and the King of Mercury. However, we haven't found the other parts to bring that all together yet, so we're just gonna carry on for now. Wait a minute, this wall looked kinda weird. What I thought. Inside of this small passageway, we can find a floating cochlea, who tells us, "I used to be a number cruncher for a big corporation, and it was so boring and awful. A boring businessman. Then I got extensive surgery to be a free-floating cochlea, and I've never been happier." In the area, we can also find a path down to this fleshy room with faces covering the walls and another one of those weird wiggly things. In the hallway to the actual room itself, we can find x-rays covering the wall and another nurse. Perfection? Now that's hard. We gotta strive for it though. After all, perfect patients need perfect parasites. And that is exactly what we find in the next room. A massive parasite which, according to the 2 nurses in the room, the study of neoparasitics is very important to us. Parasites are some of the most effective creatures on the planet. This new parasite was developed from the body of a young teacher in Berlin. We have very high hopes for her. It's hard to turn a human into a parasite. Most people would never want to be a parasite. That's why her brain is filled with dopamine 24/7 to keep her chugging. And it works. We can't interact with the parasites, so it's time for us to head back to the main hallway from before. Down the hallway, we can come across these claws? Weird fleshy spiky things that will try to swipe at us from the wall. We just need to pass by them at the right time, and we're able to enter the outdoors section, where we can find another nurse that we can take a keycard from. And, what a nice sky out tonight. At the end of the area, we can find this door that will only open to a keycard. There's 2 of them down this hallway, and we can open them both to flip a switch and kill one of the 3 figures up top. We can now go to that separate right hallway and travel down to the left to find a nurse staring at what appears to be the moon. However, she's not alone as the moon is staring back. Beautiful night, isn't it? It makes me feel a lot better to know that when I look up at the moon, someone is looking back. There's a door here that we don't have the keycard to open yet, so we must travel back down to the other end of the corridor, avoiding some more of those wall creatures along the way. You can't see it due to the fixed camera position of this game, but right here was single-handedly the scariest part of the fucking game for me. It might have just been because I was already scared by being in a hospital location, but dear god, the sudden kick of that sound design out of the droning ambience. It had me wishing that there was a way to pause the fucking game. That combined with the fact that it is the only patrolling enemy in the whole entire fucking area. Yeah, I was pretty fucking shit scared. At the end of the hallway, however, we can find another keycard nurse and kill our last figure before grabbing the egg of the earth and getting out of here. Much like with the other 2 locations, I feel like this location specifically is an embodiment of just the general healthcare system, specifically since the game takes place in America. Horrible fucking healthcare system. Although I can't really fucking say shit, you have to wait about like 8 fucking hours to get anything. The location specifically exemplifies the way that the healthcare system will prioritize people if they have more money. If you're willing to cash out more, then the hospital will most likely keep using you. Just like keep grabbing your fucking money as you're slowly dying. And I feel like that's what this area is meant to represent. And I would say that it's not all of the hospitals that do that. But I fucking hate hospitals. I don't give a shit. They're fucking scary as hell. I will dunk on them all I want. There's now a new location. I'm falling. I feel like it's been coming for a while, but it never does. Deeper into the earth. Deeper into the dirt and rock and veins and sinew. Real world tip. There is a Mariana Trench under every town. Those words on their own are enough to be extremely bone-chilling. However, down here, it's the darkest it's ever been. There's nothing to be found here apart from these creatures who resemble the parasites from the sewers, and our only way is forward. No matter what action you take at this point, you'll get the same ending. However, after beating the game, we can gain access to a short song in the menu. I like it, it's pretty cool. I suggest that you go listen to it. After beating the game, we get a few more locations to go to. I'm visiting the first one being a forbidden location of a library. There's only one note here, and it's referencing that phenomenon that I mentioned before. Caldman 4, the brilliant interstellar phenomenon lighting up our skies. I don't feel that I need to introduce you to the Caldman 4. The interstellar phenomenon that's been making headlines for the last month. One only has to look into the skies to see the bizarre sight. 4 brilliant lights leading what looks like a trail of absolute darkness across the night sky. The phenomenon has elicited all sorts of reactions, from wonder to outright panic. Many religious leaders have pointed to the Caldman 4 as a sign for jubilation, or of the end times to come. But what are they really? The answer is, we don't really know. The Caldman 4 were first discovered on January 16, 2021 by Harris Caldman, a worker at Green Bank Observatory in Green Bank, West Virginia. At the time, they were characterized as a set of several superheated interstellar objects, moving through space at speeds previously unheard of. What of that dark space behind them? Though it might look as if the stars have simply disappeared, leading scientists assure that the stars are all most likely still there, but that their light has been absorbed, and hidden from us by way of a phenomenon known as Heath-Nightdale absorption. Light is absorbed into the trail of the Caldman 4, and expelled out the sides, known as the photon edge. Before we have time to think about what we just read, a group of 4 eyeballs appear and scare us out of the library, leading us to find the exit. Very similar to the ending of the game itself, we get a view of Pompey escaping some form of tracking system, and are forced to instead take control of this other character with a more futuristic, professional-looking Psychopomp. Walking out, we can find to be in the middle of the desert, at a motel. A massive red earth is in the sky. In the parking lot, we can find that same dog from the tutorial of the game, who states, "Ah, how nice to meet you. I do say, my good sir, your face seems to have broken and become abstracted. No matter, it happens to the best of us. We have more important things at hand. I am the king of all dogs, and I bring you a very important warning. Look to the skies. Do you not feel it? When you set your eyes upon the bloody earth above, do you not see it? Something terrible is awoken. Soon it will descend upon the landscape and bring about utmost destruction. I must beseech you. You must put an end to it. Only you have the power to do so. I know a business-minded individual like yourself will have no problem figuring this out. We must make haste. I have some associates that I will introduce you to right away. Come along now. There is no time to lose." As well as hinting at a possible sequel to the game, the King of All Dog reveals to us that something terrible is awoken, possibly referencing Pompey and her new dragonfly-like appearance coming out of the center of the earth. I'll get to explaining more soon, but before we can do so, we have 4 last short locations to visit. See, every now and then, whilst being between levels, there are 4 different transient locations that have a chance to appear. Those being the Freight Village, the starting point, this location with 2 talking orbs, and Daddy's Bad Place. Starting off with the Freight Village, we can find various homes, wall paintings, and villagers who all tell the story of how the Freights used to be the original inhabitants of the Earth. Or at least, the bloody Earth. Because that's right, there is 2 different Earths. That note from the scientist in the sewers claimed of the Earth losing mass and another planet of about the same kind of amount of less mass had appeared, indicating that at some point in time the Earth had split into 2. The regular Earth and Bloody Earth, which is where we play as Pompey. The Freights used to be the main inhabitants of this Earth until humans came around and drove them underground, depriving them of food and forcing them to live in these grim underground environments like the sewers. The Freights worship this deity called the Dragonfly Queen, who I personally believe is either closely related to or is the Queen of Venus, who, by connection, could be Pompey. When taking into account the area starting point where we find the massive broken open chrysalis alongside another Freight who exclaims, "When nobody was looking, the Queen's chrysalis hatched." That means that she's out there. Who knows where? I can't help but fear there are vermin dogs who would lead her astray. I must have faith. The Queen will return. And how Pompey explains that she's only able to remember events clearly after April 19th, which we can kinda infer this message is from her, seeing as she's almost always smiling after putting on the Psychopomp, maybe due to some kind of dopamine influence. Presumably after she is woken up, quote-unquote, by making the Psychopomp. And she literally turns into a dragonfly at the end of the game. What doesn't fucking scream Dragonfly Queen about that? There's also this area where we can find 2 orbs communicating with each other that add to this theory. Hey, can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you. Good. I hope you're doing well. It's boring here. I'm dying of boredom. I can't stand the desert. What's the status? The Queen? She's awake, but still dormant, trying to hide. That doesn't matter though. Her progress is perfect. What about the other one? The king is so fast asleep. Like a big dumb snoring baby. Good. Do not wake him up until I tell you to. The last thing that we need is to deal with both of them at the same time. Not until everything is ready. Oh, do we have to? There's nothing to do around here. Especially these little puppets. They're boring, not like the real thing. These ones don't squirm right, and they make such a mess when they pop. Have patience. Soon we'll have more fun than ever before. Now, if you say so, you're the boss. Am I a good boy? The best of all boys. The king of all boys. Once we see you again, I'll give you a nice big bone. Sounds lovely, I'll look forward to that. Oh wait, is this channel secure? It should be, not like it matters. Nobody listening can do anything. This is presumably the king of all dogs talking to maybe another dog or some other kind of entity. The queen has been woken up and yet the king is still asleep. The dogs, however, seem to be able to hold control over when this all happens, which kinda adds onto the fact that this second character at the end of the game could be the King of Mercury, much like Pompey, maybe the Queen of Venus. By the time we hear this conversation, the events of the game have already been carried out, and Pompey is awake with the use of the Psychopomp, however, doesn't yet realize the power that she holds. The dogs seem to believe that in order to regain control over the situation, they must implement the king in order to possibly balance Pompey out at the right time. This can also be inferred from what the King of all Dog tells us at the end. Something terrible has awoken could definitely be referring to either Pompey or this Queen Dragonfly that's awoken from the chrysalis. I still don't really know what the intentions of the dogs are, whether they just want to keep the peace or if they want power or if they're malicious. The dog at the start of the game also seems to be the king of all dogs, who talks to us if we idle with him for too long. Don't idle here. You have much to do. Don't worry, for there is a plan for everything. I'm sure you will see in due time, my friend. The dogs kind of seem to want to simultaneously control what's going on as well as push it forward. I mean, they definitely seem to have some kind of influence by being around two totally different people who just so happen to make the exact same device at the same time on two totally different planets. It seems very unlikely that that would just happen without any kind of outside influence. I'm also kind of unsure about the moon. Whether it has anything to do with anything, or is just kind of a strange observer watching the two Earths until the Caldon 4 get here, or for something else to happen. Which, speaking of the Caldon 4, it seems to be hidden, or at least the information on it is being hidden away. By it being in a forbidden location, quote-unquote, that we get scared out of, it seems as if some kind of scientific society or the government or whoever is hiding it away from the public, maybe to try and lure out any kind of conspiracy theorists like Pompey. Once again, I'm not too sure about that part. One final thing which leads back to the theory that Pompey may be this dragonfly queen is the TV in Daddy's Bad Place. A room full of floating debris, a cross, and a TV. Turning it on, it states, repeat. At 3:45 AM today, a state of emergency was declared following the appearance of a large unknown insectoid creature in the middle of the road of Central City. The creature is unpredictable, and is considered to be highly dangerous. This is not a drill. If you are inside, stay inside. If you are outside, find the nearest shelter. If you are thinking, stop thinking. The insect may appear to you as human. It is not. It is an apparition of your imagination and does not exist. Stay away from the insect as it is highly dangerous. Do not attempt to communicate with the insect as it is highly dangerous. The insect is not real. The insect is not real. The insect is not real. Now, there's two possible scenarios. Either this report is referring to Pompey after emerging from the center of the earth, or it is a previous dragonfly queen. The game has an ongoing leitmotif throughout it of monarchs or specifically a queen being killed to start another cycle, so it is entirely plausible to think that this may be yet another dragonfly queen, one which came before Pompey. However, a lot of the game is up to interpretation, and there may even be a third scenario to this. Before I end off today's video, there is one last secret to be found. Not in the game itself, but rather on Carbonic's website. In the hospital, there is a wall which spouts a line of random letters, words, and numbers. Putting them together, we get 178. Dream, open, close, 2, Evan, 43R, 520, open end. Then, if we scroll to the bottom of the Psychopomp page, we can find a place to enter the code 178DOC2E43R5200E. That's two different O's. The 0 and then an O. Where we can gain access to this poem titled Fun. Fun's most fun when it's with you. From sky to shining star, together forever it's true. To travel near and far. If we break too many toys and that makes you blue, we'll reunite the king and queen and make a world anew. Fun will be eternal then. We'll play forevermore. The toys will now have lives again. The better for us four. Now, there's a lot of what this could mean. There's 4 figures on the left with a couple of possible connections to who is who. First of all, we have the king of all dogs. No doubt about that. That is absolutely either a vermin dog just generally, or that is the king of all dogs. I couldn't think of anyone else that would be. But then there's the 3 humanoid figures. Maybe it's Pompey, the guy from the other Earth, and that weird clay baby that Pompey made. Or what I personally think it is, the Freight just kind of represented as one person with their hooded clothing. Pompey and either that other dude or maybe the human race as a whole. I don't know. The poem itself is pretty clear. The king and the queen will awaken and make some kind of reawakened world/worlds. The use of it being 4 specifically could lean back to the Caldman 4. I don't know though. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are in the comments. It's clear to me that the game has had a lot of love and work put into it, and I can't wait to see if the game gets a sequel. Alongside Psychopomp, Carbonic has made multiple other games such as Dashboard, Nashboard, and Dreamwild. And if I'm being honest, while doing research for this video, I found his story to be pretty moving and inspiring. Fading Club is a small independent game developer run by Carbonic. From here on now, anytime that I say we or us or anything like that, it's out of habit. I'm really just referring to myself. This is a one-man band type of deal. I've been wanting to make video games ever since I was a little kid. Honestly, I think I wanted to make video games since before I even had any sort of video game system. I would draw made-up game consoles all the time, and fantasize about the day that I would actually make something that people would play. Something about them called out to me, and I really just had to make something. Look at me now. These days I make video games on my own. I have a lot of fun with it, but it's a lot of work too. When I was in high school, I started working on a game called Dashboard. The game ended up being so all-consuming that it started affecting my grades in school. I didn't let that stop me, and now I can say that I make my own games. My kid self would be proud. Even today, I go back to update Dashboard, and honestly, I don't know if I'll ever stop. It's too fun, and I really get a kick out of watching the project grow and evolve over time. But doesn't mean I'm not working on other new games, though. I've got a lot of stuff that I can't wait to show the world. I hope you're excited because this ride ain't ending anytime soon. For me, making video games is like the ultimate form of expression. I get to design characters, stories, scenes, music, and all sorts of other things which the player gets to experience firsthand. It's a crazy gratifying experience to see someone playing and enjoying something which you created. I really can't compare it to anything. If anyone out there has ever felt an interest in making games, I say go for it. I can't say that it'll be lucrative or anything, but I wouldn't trade the work I've put into my games for the world. On top of that, I make games for myself. When I look at the video game market, there's a lot of very good projects out there, but almost none of them feel like games made for me. I don't blame other devs for this. It's just a consequence of art in general. They're making the games they want to see, so I should be making the games I want to see. I've had these stories bouncing around and evolving in my head since I was 8 years old. I think it's about time I show the world what I've got. If you at all feel the same way, I really do implore you to begin to tell your own story. The world should hear your voice. If anyone out there is interested in video game development or just games in general and is looking for someone to talk to about these things, please reach out to me. I'm always open to talk and I love to hear people's unique perspectives on this topic. Even if you don't go and play Psychopomp after this video, I suggest just going and playing one of Carbonic's other games. They all have the same level of love and work put into them, and that's just something that's really nice to see in a developer. And I'll be fully honest when I say that I'll be sticking around to see what else Carbonic comes up with. But that'll be all from me. After this video, I'll be going on a hiatus for about 4 to 6 weeks, maybe just over that, from uploading videos whilst moving house. That's right, I'm moving house. No more moldy, icky basement. Yes, this is my current basement. Yes, maybe I've been breathing in mold for the past nearly 10 years now. I think it's actually about like 7 years, but that's nearly 10 years. They call me Mold Eater for a fucking reason. I've got more mold particles in my lungs than Ethan fucking Winters. But I'll still be streaming both here and on the Twitch, as well as posting art to all of my different platforms. But that'll be all from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be seeing you guys whenever I next upload. Bye-bye.
Why are you using 2 ingredients of